It starts quietly. You're standing in your kitchen, maybe stirring your morning tea, when something shifts. It's not pain, exactly, more like a whisper from your body that something isn't quite right. A strange tightness in your jaw, a dull ache creeping across your shoulder, a sudden, unfamiliar wave of fatigue that makes you pause. You tell yourself it's nothing. Maybe you didn't sleep well. Maybe it's just age. But deep down, you feel it. Something is off. The terrifying truth? Most seniors don't die from the heart attack itself. They die because they wait. Because they're alone. Because they ignore the signs or don't know what they mean. But some survive. Not by luck, not by miracle, but because they knew what to do in the next 10 minutes. Richard Bennett was a widower. 72 years old, former high school teacher. A man who still watered his own roses every morning after breakfast and never missed his daily crossword puzzle. On a warm Tuesday morning in June, Richard collapsed alone in his backyard. At first, he thought it was just fatigue, a little heaviness in the shoulders. But within 30 seconds, the world around him began to blur. There was no dramatic chest-clutching moment like you see in movies. No sudden fall to the ground, just a soft groan, a sharp breath, and then silence. But Richard survived, not because he was lucky, but because, months earlier, he'd watched a video. He'd taken notes. He'd made a plan. He'd rehearsed it like fire drills from his teaching days. That plan saved his life. In this video, we're going to show you the exact 6 steps that saved Richard's life and could one day save yours. These are not theories, they are practical, science-backed actions designed for real seniors, living real lives, who may one day face a life or death decision alone. So don't just watch, let this be the day you become ready. Because the most powerful thing you can do for your heart is prepare your mind. If you or someone you love is over 60 and lives alone, this video could do the same for you. Because what we're about to share today isn't theory. It's survival. It's what decades of heart research, emergency medicine, and real-life experience have shown works when you're alone, and the clock is ticking. First, recognize the silent signs. They don't feel like Hollywood. Most people picture a heart attack as crushing chest pain, like an elephant sitting on your ribs. That's what we were taught. That's what the media shows. But for seniors, the truth is more complicated. After the age of 60, heart attack symptoms become sneakier, quieter, and easier to ignore, especially for women. According to the American Heart Association, up to 40% of seniors experiencing a heart attack feel no chest pain at all. Instead, they experience sudden fatigue, shortness of breath while resting, nausea or indigestion, cold, clammy sweat, confusion, pain in the back, neck, jaw, or even arms, trouble sleeping in the nights leading up to it, and in some cases, as with Richard, it just feels like a strange pressure in the upper back. Why are symptoms different in older adults? Because our nervous systems age too. The heart doesn't always signal pain the way it once did. Aging arteries, neuropathy, and underlying chronic conditions like diabetes can dull the classic signs. What feels like heartburn might actually be your heart begging for oxygen. But here's the problem: when symptoms don't feel serious, we tend to wait. That wait can be fatal. What you can do, if you're over 60 and feel a wave of sudden exhaustion, a strange shortness of breath, cold sweating or nausea without reason, a subtle pressure in your back or jaw, don't wait, don't guess, don't minimize it. When multiple small symptoms show up together, treat them as your body whispering its warning. Listen. If you found part 1 helpful, comment 1 or share your thoughts. If you feel it didn't meet your expectations, comment 0 and let us know what we should improve or clarify. And before we move on to the next chapter, let me gently remind you, if you found even one useful insight so far, there's so much more still to come. If you're enjoying this journey, please take a second to click the subscribe button. It means the world to us, and it helps more people like you discover life-changing, age-wise advice. And I'd love to hear from you. What's one thing you've learned so far that surprised you? Leave a comment below with the number of the chapter that resonated most. Let's keep learning from one another. Second, call 911 immediately. Never, ever drive yourself. When the heart is screaming for help, every second counts. But one of the most common and dangerous mistakes seniors make is trying to drive themselves to the hospital. According to data from the American Heart Association, 65% of deaths from heart attacks in seniors over 60 occur before they ever reach the hospital. And you know what's heartbreaking? Many of those lives could have been saved if help had arrived sooner. Why the delay? Pride, denial, fear of causing a scene, and worst of all, the belief that I can handle this myself. Let's be brutally honest. Driving during a heart attack is like trying to steer a car with a flat tire, low fuel, and a smoke-filled windshield all at the same time. You're not just risking your own life, you're endangering others on the road too. Even if you think the symptoms are manageable, things can spiral fast. Chest pressure can turn into fainting. Dizziness can turn into a crash. That 10-minute drive can become 30 minutes of chaos and regret. What you can do? Here's what every senior, especially those who live alone, needs to do the moment they suspect a heart issue. 1. Stop. Sit down or lie down in a stable, supported position. Don't try to finish what you're doing. 2. Call 911 immediately. Even if you're not 100% sure it's a heart attack, let the professionals figure it out. 3. Be specific. Tell the dispatcher, I'm a senior experiencing possible heart attack symptoms. I'm alone at your address. My door is locked or unlocked. 4. Unlock your front door if you can. This simple step can save precious minutes in case you lose consciousness. 5. If you have a medical alert device, use IT. Even if you've already called 911, it can provide backup monitoring and keep a trained responder on the line. Avoid this common mistake. Do not call your son, your neighbor, or your friend before calling 911. Every minute counts. You can call loved ones after help is on the way. Emergency services don't just drive you to the hospital. Modern ambulances are mini ICUs. Paramedics can give oxygen, administer nitroglycerin, start an EKG, alert the cardiac team at the hospital before you arrive. That means you're getting treatment before you even reach the area. If you found part 2 helpful, comment 2 or share your thoughts. If you feel it didn't meet your expectations, comment 0 and let us know what we should improve or clarify. Third, take aspirin, but only the right way. It's small, it's inexpensive, and in the middle of a heart attack, it could save your life if you take it correctly. Aspirin isn't just a pain reliever. During a heart attack, it becomes one of the most powerful emergency tools in your entire house. But here's the truth. Most people over 60 take it the wrong way when it matters most. The majority of heart attacks are caused by a blood clot blocking one of the coronary arteries, the arteries that supply oxygen to your heart. When that happens, every second without blood flow increases the damage. Aspirin works by stopping platelets, tiny blood cells, from clumping together and making the clot worse. This buys you time, slows the clot's growth, and helps oxygen reach parts of your heart that are starving for it. Research shows that taking aspirin within the first few minutes of a heart attack can reduce the risk of death by up to 23%. If you're like most seniors, you've heard this advice before. Take aspirin if you're having a heart attack. But what you haven't been told is how that aspirin is taken makes a massive difference. Many people swallow it whole, take it with a full glass of water, or use coated versions that dissolve too slowly. These small mistakes delay absorption, and during a heart attack, delay can be deadly. Sylvia was 68 when she felt a dull pain in her jaw and a strange flutter in her chest. She remembered something about aspirin and rushed to the kitchen. She swallowed one, grabbed a glass of water, and waited. By the time paramedics arrived 15 minutes later, the aspirin was still dissolving in her stomach, too slowly to make a difference when it was needed most. At the hospital, her doctor explained, it's not just if you take aspirin, it's how. How to take aspirin correctly during the suspected heart attack. 1. After calling 911, immediately locate and take 325 milligrams of aspirin. That's 1 full-strength adult aspirin or 4 low-dose, 81 milligrams baby aspirins. 2. Chew it thoroughly before swallowing. Yes, chew it, don't just swallow it. Chewing breaks the pill down faster and allows it to be absorbed through your mouth and stomach lining much quicker, sometimes in as little as 5 minutes. 3. Use only a small sip of water, if needed to help you swallow after chewing. 4. Tell paramedics exactly what you took. Let them know the dose and the time you took it. Important cautions. Do not take aspirin if you're allergic to it. You have a bleeding disorder. You've been told by your doctor not to take it due to stomach ulcers or blood thinners. And remember, aspirin is not the same as Tylenol, Advil, Motrin, or other pain relievers. Only aspirin has this platelet thinning effect that matters during a heart attack. Pro tip: keep uncoated aspirin tablets in at least 4 key places. By your bedside, in the kitchen, in your wallet or purse, in your car's glove box. Time spent searching is time your heart doesn't have. It may be the simplest action in this entire survival plan, but don't let its simplicity fool you. Done right, it's your heart's first line of defense while you wait for emergency care. If you found part 3 helpful, comment 3 or share your thoughts. If you feel it didn't meet your expectations, comment 0 and let us know what we should improve or clarify. 4th, position yourself for survival, sitting or lying down the right way. When you're alone and in the middle of a heart attack, every choice you make either eases the burden on your heart or adds to its struggle. And one of the most overlooked choices, how you position your body. It may sound simple, but the way you sit or lie down in those critical minutes can directly affect your breathing, blood flow, and chances of staying conscious. When a heart attack hits, your cardiovascular system becomes compromised. The heart struggles to pump, oxygen flow may drop, and breathing can become more labored. What many people don't realize is that lying flat on your back, the position most imagine is safe, can make things worse. Especially if you're experiencing shortness of breath, dizziness, or nausea. The right body position can help increase oxygen intake, reduce pressure on the heart, lower anxiety, prevent accidental falls if you pass out. Here's what I often tell my older patients. You wouldn't sleep with a plastic bag over your head, so why would you lie flat when your heart and lungs are struggling? Your position can either open up the lungs and assist oxygen exchange, or make things harder for your body when it's already fighting for survival. Think of it like giving your heart and lungs a helping hand, not making them work harder. Carlos, 77-year-old, had been watching TV when he suddenly felt lightheaded and sweaty. Thinking of those old movie scenes, he lay flat on the carpet and waited for help. But within minutes, his breathing became more strained. He couldn't catch his breath. When paramedics arrived, the first thing they did was sit him upright and support his back. His breathing improved within seconds. Later, his cardiologist told him bluntly, "Your body position was making your heart work harder, not easier." How to position yourself for survival. If you're feeling shortness of breath, very common in seniors, sit in a high Fowler's position, upright with your back supported by pillows or a chair. Keep your knees slightly bent or resting comfortably. Keep your chest open, no slouching forward. Why it works. This position helps your lungs expand more fully and reduces strain on the diaphragm, allowing better oxygen flow. If you're feeling lightheaded, dizzy, or faint, lie back at a 45-degree angle, supported by pillows or cushions. Keep your legs flat and your head slightly elevated. Why it works. This promotes blood flow to the brain without forcing your heart to pump too hard uphill. If you're feeling nauseous or at risk of vomiting, sit upright and lean slightly to your left side. Avoid lying flat to prevent choking if vomiting occurs. Why it works. It reduces the risk of aspiration and helps the digestive tract stay relaxed. Additional tips. Loosen tight clothing, especially around your chest, neck, and waist. That includes belts, bras, neckties, or restrictive waistbands. Keep a blanket nearby. During a heart attack, cold sweats are common, and feeling cold can make your heart beat faster. Shivering adds strain. Never stand up or try to walk unless absolutely necessary. Moving increases demand on your heart and could cause you to collapse. Positioning isn't just about comfort, it's about maximizing survival while you wait for the pros to arrive. Where should you be in your home? Choose a location near your front door or easily accessible entry point. If you live in a 2-story home and the symptoms start upstairs, don't try to go downstairs. Sit down immediately and call 911. Tell dispatchers exactly where in the house you are. And one more pro tip. Leave a note on your front door that says, "Emergency inside, door unlocked," if you live alone. This small action could buy you another precious minute. If you found part 4 helpful, comment 4 or share your thoughts. If you feel it didn't meet your expectations, comment 0 and let us know what we should improve or clarify. 5th, control your breathing. The 4-7-8 technique that can lower panic and help your heart. Your heart may be the organ under attack, but your breath is the tool that can help keep it from giving out. In the critical minutes after a heart attack begins, your breathing pattern can make the difference between clarity and collapse, calm and chaos. And one powerful breathing technique has been proven to help: the 4-7-8 method. The 4-7-8 technique, developed by Dr. Andrew Weil and now taught in many emergency response programs, is one of the fastest ways to reduce internal chaos when you feel overwhelmed, and it requires no equipment, no medication, and no help from others. This technique is especially powerful for seniors, whose bodies often become more reactive to stress but also more responsive to calming cues like breath regulation. It's not magic, it's physiology. Vivian was 71 when she felt a strange tightness in her chest while folding laundry. The fear hit her instantly. This might be it. But she remembered something her granddaughter had taught her, a simple breathing technique she called the calm breath. She sat down, back straight, and slowly began to breathe. In for 4, hold for 7, out for 8. By the time the ambulance arrived 10 minutes later, her blood pressure had stabilized, her heart rate had slowed, and she was fully conscious and able to communicate clearly. How to do the 4-7-8 breathing technique during a suspected heart attack. 1. Sit comfortably upright with back supported, as discussed in step 4. 2. Place the tip of your tongue on the ridge behind your upper front teeth. Keep it there throughout the exercise. 3. Exhale completely through your mouth, making a gentle whooshing sound. 4. Close your mouth and inhale slowly through your nose for a count of 4. 5. Hold your breath for a count of 7. 6. Exhale through your mouth for a count of 8, again making a soft whooshing sound. 7. Repeat this cycle 4 times, or continue until help arrives. Why it works. Extended exhalation activates your parasympathetic nervous system. Slower breathing lowers heart rate and blood pressure. Holding the breath allows oxygen to saturate your bloodstream more efficiently. Focusing on numbers distracts your mind from panic and reduces anxiety. And most importantly, it gives you something constructive to do while waiting for help, reducing the sense of helplessness. Bonus tip. Even practicing this technique once a day can train your body to respond more calmly under stress, not just during a heart attack, but during any moment of fear, anxiety, or overwhelm. It won't stop a heart attack, but it can help slow its progression, stabilize your vital signs, and buy you more time, both physically and mentally. If you found part 5 helpful, comment 5 or share your thoughts. If you feel it didn't meet your expectations, comment 0 and let us know what we should improve or clarify. If your heart gave you a warning tomorrow, would you know what to do? If you felt that strange tightness in your chest, the shortness of breath, the sudden cold sweat, would you freeze? Or would you act? After everything life has thrown your way, the hardships, the losses, the quiet victories. You deserve more than fear. You deserve to feel prepared. You deserve to feel powerful, even in your most vulnerable moments. Because surviving a heart attack when you're alone isn't about being a hero. It's about having a plan and the courage to follow it. Richard, who survived alone in his garden, said it best. It wasn't strength that saved me. It was remembering the steps. And those steps, though simple, can become your safety net. They are: recognize the warning signs. Call 911 immediately. Take aspirin the right way. Position yourself correctly. Control your breathing with the 4-7-8 technique. And most importantly, prepare before it happens. These steps don't just buy you time. They buy you the chance to stay here, with the people who still need you. Because you're not fragile. You're not powerless. You are living proof of resilience. And if this video helps even one person prepare, recognize, or respond faster, it may save a life. That is the power of knowledge. That is the legacy of being ready. If this video touched your heart or gave you something to think about, we'd love to hear from you. Please share your thoughts in the comments, even just a word or a memory. A simple "thank you" or "I've tried this" could help someone else who's reading. And if you believe that aging can still be full of wisdom, warmth, and new beginnings, tap the like button to let us know this kind of content matters. Subscribe to Daily Elder Advice for more gentle, research-based stories and tips made just for you. Because life after 60 isn't the end. It's a different kind of beginning. And we're honored to walk it with you.